Hello guys, I'm going to teach you a little bit about trigonometric identities. So the image that's shown right here on Desmos is the very basic knowledge that you need to have. So there's three reciprocal identities, and those are cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, so it's 1 over tangent. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, which is 1 over sine. And secant is 1 divided by cosine. This is something that we did when we were studying the unit circle, right? We know that tangent is sine divided by cosine, and that cotangent is the reciprocal of that, so cosine divided by sine. There's three other identities. Most important one is sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Those are the Pythagorean identities. Then there's tangent squared plus 1 equals secant squared, and 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. So these are basically, identities are basically just statements that are always true. All right, so I'm going to run you through a couple of examples of how you prove trigonometric identities. All right, in this Desmos file, I have 10 identities for you, and 5 of them are guided. All right, so the very first one is a simple statement that says the cosecant of theta multiplied by the cosine of theta is equal to the cotangent of theta. Now, this is a true statement. All of these are true statements. Your job is simply to simplify one of the sides of the problem, only one side, and to prove that it is equal to the other side. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work with my left side, and 99% of the time with these problems, I'll go ahead and tell you you're going to work with the left side, right? So I need to basically prove that if I take cosecant and multiply it by cosine, I get cotangent. So here I go. Well, first thing I notice is that cosecant is one of my identities, right? Cosecant is my is 1 divided by sine. So in step 2 of this problem, I'm going to rewrite cosecant as 1 divided by sine, bring down my cosine, and bring down equals to cotangent. You'll find that this right side, you don't need to change it at all. All right, actually, you shouldn't. Next thing is, well, if I multiply a fraction by a whole number, then that whole number basically just gets multiplied to the numerator. So 1 over sine times cosine is the same as saying cosine divided by sine. All right, and I bring down my equals cotangent. Now I'm practically done with the problem. Cosine divided by sine, if I look at my image right here, cosine divided by sine is the same thing as cotangent. So for my last step, I'm going to write cotangent, my left side, is equal to cotangent, my right side. Only when you reach this point, when you get left side is completely equal to the right side, are you done. All right, so that's how you prove that very first basic trig identity. All right, you'll find that number 2 is a very similar problem. You just have to try it out doing your own work. Okay, here's another guided problem. What if we square? Well, squaring, really, we're using the same identities. So here we have 1 plus tangent squared equals secant squared. You'll see that in step 2, what I did is I turned tangent into sine divided by cosine, all right, because that's what it is equivalent to. And in the third step, I did something pretty interesting. I have a whole number added to a fraction. And what I need to do right there is I need to basically multiply by a common denominator. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the number 1 by cosine squared over cosine squared, because that's going to give me a common denominator. So when I do that, I get cosine squared divided by cosine squared plus sine squared over cosine squared equals secant squared. All right, moving right on along. When I add two fractions, I keep the common denominator and I add the numerator. So that's cosine squared plus sine squared, and that's equal to secant squared. Then I make a big jump. In my next step, I say this big numerator of cosine squared plus sine squared, well, that's really just 1. And if I pay attention to my image again, that's one of the Pythagorean identities. Sine squared plus cosine squared is always equal to 1. So now I've got 1 over cosine, or 1 over cosine squared equals secant squared. Again, if I look at my table, 1 over cosine is the same as secant. So I am now done. Secant squared equals secant squared. And those are two very basic identities. Those should get you through the first 4 problems. All right. Then you can try out 5, 7, and 9 are all guided. It shows you all the work. So you can use those. And then 6, 8, and 10 are very similar to the problems right before them. So you should be able to knock those out. All right. Let me know if you have any questions about those. And it is okay to struggle on these today. We will get better at them as we go. Okay. Good job, guys.